Hi, my name is Miren Gutierrez, and I'm going to talk about how to handle sources in a story about the environment or about a development issue. This presentation is based on the work I did as an editor-in-chief for an international news agency called IPS, Interpress Service, for 7 years. IPS is specialized in environmental and development stories, and how to handle sources was especially important for IPS because the agency didn't publish spot news and was specialized in long, contextualized stories, which we thought had an added value of including voices that were rarely included in mainstream stories. So, in fact, its motto was giving voice to the voiceless. And it pioneered in the sort of journalism that is current today in certain media, providing a human face, localizing stories, contextualizing issues, and talking about global processes, agreements, and trends through the eyes of normal people. Therefore, IPS offered a different story from the ones released by other international news agencies, who relied more on governmental and corporate voices. Another way in which we guaranteed and made sure that we provided a different story was asking our reporters to provide at least three relevant exclusive sources per story, and also that made it totally original and different from other stories. I'm going to start with with how this process starts. It starts agreeing on a story with the editor and with the writer. The writer and the editor have to talk and work together on a plan of action, which should include the focus of the story, but also what sort of or type of sources to talk to, even what sources to talk to, a structure for the story, and what the lead and the title will say, although that's the realm of the editor. At this stage, the editor could suggest sources, put the writer in contact with sources, even suggest documents and data that could be useful to the writer. So the editor at the beginning should play the role of facilitator. Then the reporter should use original sources whenever possible instead of references to them. Should identify sources clearly because the public is entitled to as much information, relevant information, of course, as possible to judge the reliability and motivation of the sources that were included in the story. The reporter should consider the sources, motives, and reasons before promising anonymity. The reporter should reserve anonymity for sources who may face danger, retribution, or other harm, or have information that cannot be obtained anywhere else. And also, the reporter should explain in the story why anonymity was granted. So the reader can judge how reliable the information was. And also, the reporter should confirm the information they provide. Anonymous sources, the information that is provided by anonymous sources should be confirmed independently. The reporter should provide access to source material when it's relevant and appropriate. He or she should boldly tell the story of the diversity and magnitude of the human experience. That means that he or she should seek sources whose voices we seldom hear. And another advice that I would include here is that it should contact women. Women's voices are seldom included in stories. And they are especially relevant for development stories. And finally, the reporter should be wary of sources offering information for favors of money, and I would advise not to pay for access to news, and identify content provided from outside sources. The role of the editor during this process. When editing the story, the editor should check that the information provided by the story is documented and backed by evidence. It should make sure that the sources of information are clearly identified, as I said before, and it should ask the writers to include links whenever possible to the sources, groups, reports that were cited in the story. The editor should in case the sources cannot be identified because the writer is protecting them, the editor should make sure that the information they provide is confirmed through another channel and that source is identified in the story. He or she should also he or she should agree with the writer and discuss the source's interest in providing the information, and it should make sure that the writer talk to all relevant sides involved in the story, including the accused, if there is any finger that is pointing to wrongdoing or anything of the sort. About anonymous sources, the editor should discuss with the writer whether the source should be granted confidentiality in the first place. It is quite different to talk to a whistleblower, someone in the middle of an armed conflict or suffering repressive regime, than talking to a diplomat sitting comfortably in the UN. The decision to grant confidentiality, taken together with by the writer and the editor, depends on the nature of the information the source is providing, who she or he is, and in what circumstances he or she is speaking. And also, it has to do with the importance of the information that the source is providing. The editor has to decide whether the information an anonymous source is providing is so vital to the public interest that is worth including in the story. So he or she has to ask the question: can the story stand without that information? If the source asks for anonymity, the journalist should let the source know that the information cannot be used unless it's confirmed independently and by or through another identified source. And the journalists should always explain in the story why confidentiality was necessary. And talking about off the record and that sort of thing, maybe it's a good idea to remind everybody what off the record, background information, etc. means. Off the record, as everybody knows in this business, means that the journalist cannot use the information at all in the story, only as a clue to investigate further. Whereas background information means that information can be used as part of the story, as part of the context of the story, without disclosing the source. So that doesn't mean that the background information shouldn't be independently confirmed too. It should be confirmed, and this should be explained to the source of the information. So, having clarified with the source that off-the-record information cannot be used explicitly in the story, the journalist should press the source for for something to help the readers understand why confidentiality was necessary in the first place, whether it was fear of loss of a job, incarceration, physical harm, etc. We should indicate, without really revealing the identity of the source, why we were protecting the source with some explanation. For example, a classical sentence is XXS said a government official who fears losing her job if she goes public. That's a formula that could be used. There are many other formulas. There's another formula that can be used in the case of a meeting. When a meeting is held under the Chatham House rule, participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of any of the speakers or any of the participants can be revealed. So thank you very much. I hope this is useful, and do not miss my next video.